Hey, it's BessieLB, and I am here with another episode on Ask Me BessieLB. Let's talk about it. Today, I'm going to just be listing off about 5 different main things that stuck with me in 2020 that I felt like I just kept talking about, I kept living by, and I feel like a lot of the world obviously was embracing some of these things one way or another. So I'm just going to list them off. I'm going to touch them briefly. And my hope is to kind of get your minds going and jogging so you can kind of think about what you really focused on in 2020. And now that we're coming to the end of January, what is it that you've noticed that you took from 2020 that you might have brought into 2021? What is it that from the top of 2021 to the ending of 2021 you've realized that you've evolved with over almost a month? So I'm going to list off the 5 pointers that I noticed from last year to this year. And then in another video, I feel like for those 5 topics, I want to kind of touch more on and go more in depth with. So for me in 2020, one of the main things that I jump started on, I should say, I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like January, February was kind of a blur of 2020 as far as jumping right into a pandemic that none of us ever really dealt with. So I feel like 2020 really started the year in March, if that makes any sense to any of you all, because I feel like that's when it started for me. So once 2020 March came, at the end of 2020, for March, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to be in this quarantine, I'm going to be in this house, I'm going to be focusing on me. I don't know when I'm getting up out of this lockup. My first thing was health with physical and mental focus. Physical and mental focus. So again, I'm not going to go into very specifics because I want to save that for separate videos, but this is something that I focused on for health with physical and mental. Physical, I was just like, I ain't about to sit up in the house and gain any weight. Like, I'm already a thick madam. I am not about to gain any extra weight in this quarantine, in this pandemic, whatever it is you guys want to consider it. My mental, I've always dealt with different mental issues in the sense of like anxiety or depression or something like that. So I was like, you know what? I ain't about to sit up in my sorrow. I know this thing's about to get people. What can I do to focus on that? So I know a little quick thing. In March, I decided, all right, you know what? I'm going to start working out. I'm going to start dieting, and mainly dieting. I focused on the change in the habits of my dieting. Mentally, I just kept staying in tune, kept staying busy. I took that as a way to really jump into my creative juices, which is going to be another pointer. Going on to the next one, political views. That was a big one because you had primary elections. You then had the regular elections that was coming up in the fall. To cut to the chase with that, I've always been a Bernie supporter, even back when he was running and I was living in New York and he wanted to go, it was him, Hillary, and all of them. I was always a Bernie supporter, always wanted Bernie to win then, wanted Bernie to win now. Fast forward, Bernie didn't win. It ended up being Biden up against Trump, okay? My view on that, and again, I'll go into more depth in another video. My view on that is I saw how Biden got to operate for 8 years with Obama. I got to learn more about Kamala Harris just through her time here in California and just how she represented herself during the debate. My thing is for me, this is my opinion. For me, I felt like she carried herself in a manner, but a lot of people caught on to the like, excuse me, I'm speaking, or just like her demeanor of like trying to say, I'm here and I am a woman, but I'm not going to let you men take over, whatever the case may be. I think that that's fine, but I feel like there's also a stigma against women's attitudes and then Black women's attitudes. And I felt like sometimes during the primaries, her debates with the guys was a little, sometimes she came off a little aggressive. She came off a little much, and that's just my thought. And I don't feel like because we're a woman or because we're women and because we're women of color that we have to stick with that stigma of like giving it to them and giving them all this attitude and all this sass. And I feel like it's funny that like she's sitting in the chair now by Biden's side when I feel like, I don't know, in the debates, it was kind of like a whole other thing when the primaries was going on. That's my opinion. We're not going to get too deep into that. We're going to move on. But that was definitely something, obviously 2020 was about elections, getting Trump out the chair, and moving on to, you know, hopefully bigger and better things. Another thing that I focused on was awareness. Awareness for others and self. Awareness for others and self. Stronger relationships with God is what I have down. Stronger relationships with God. I feel like that's something that we always trying to build on for the folks that are religious, believe in God, believe in higher power, whatever the case may be. I've always been that. I grew up Baptist Christian, and my faith in God has always been there. But I really do feel like my faith in my praying repetitions really got bigger during the pandemic. Not necessarily because it was the pandemic. It was more so the different effects that was falling on maybe me and others around me that really just had me praying constantly. 5 times a day if I could, you know, every single day just praying. So being aware of myself and what it is that I wanted during that time and being aware of other people's emotions and feelings was super important for me. The fourth thing was creative abilities. My creative abilities. I've always been a creative person. I've always really wanted to sit down and really get my business up and going and not working for what they consider the man for the rest of my life. I have never had any intent for working for a business forever, right? When I retire, I want to retire from working for myself. That's always been the thing. I went to undergrad and grad getting my degrees in something creative. So the pandemic didn't like spark up this creative flare inside of me. This is something that's always been. It's just that the pandemic gave me a hell of a lot of time to be able to do so. So that was something that was very important to me, to just understand what I was capable of, the possible work that I can do with others, collaborations, the possible work that I can just work on that I hadn't been able to do in years. I was able to execute during this free time during the pandemic, and really just focusing on trading. I feel like one thing that I learned from back in the day was you did a lot of trading, right? You did trading services where one person had the cow, the other person had the chickens, right? And you were trading eggs for milk or something like that. That always stuck to me when I learned that during school. And I feel like it goes to say you don't have to support someone's business by financially doing so, right? You don't have to purchase anything, but if you can, cool. If you can't, it's as simple as liking, sharing, commenting on maybe something that they've done. It's as simple as that. So that's been a big one that has stuck with me during this time. And one of the last pointers that I felt like I really captured this time has been the essence of time and coping. Essence of time and coping is very important. My grandmother always said time is of the essence, and time is very important. And you never really realize how quick your life can go by or how slowly it can be going until you're really sitting with yourself, especially during this pandemic. And then coping, allowing yourself to cope through tough times and being able to get over those hurdles. So those were very important pointers for me. I want to know what was some very important pointers for you. Let me know if any of these pointers was as important to you as it was to me. I do want to spend some more time in another video going through those different pointers and really telling you like what it is that I did with each pointer from 2020 that I'm now taking into 2021. So let me know what you guys think and what you've been doing through 2020 in this crazy pandemic.